realized I wanted to build, so I started a boot camp to get more kids into tech sales. But I think sales is the best career path you can get into in tech. I think there's super high potential.
Our first disagreement. Because I'm team coding, engineering, blah, 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 all that stuff. This guy's telling me sales. I actually think that sales might be the worst job low-key. But, I literally think that's the worst job you can get in tech. But, anyway, why? I'm Christian here. Why do you think that? Welcome to another episode of AtilaTV. Our guest for today is the amazing Trevor Sookraj.
How's it going?
So, Trevor was a growth marketing expert guru at a Silicon Valley startup called Clearbit, and before that he was an intern in the growth and sales team at Shopify, and he's currently an arts student at Huron at Western University. But most importantly, he's the defensive core of our futsal team. So without further ado, Trevor, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, thank you.
So let's start with, the question I would like to start off with is Trevor at 16. Mm-hmm. What were you like in high school?
Awesome. So Trevor at 16 was very extroverted. I was heavily involved in student politics. So a lot of kind of like student voice activities, a lot of extracurricular activities. I was also more athletic in my prime of high school. So we played on the same futsal team.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I was about to mention that. Most importantly, he's a defensive core of our futsal team.
The cardio was a lot better at 16. So I played on a rep soccer team. And also played like rep basketball on alternate seasons. So it was, just very highly engaged, extroverted. I did DECA throughout high school since grade 9, so I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to go into business. Initially, I actually wanted to be like a cardiologist.
But typical.
That was it, yeah. But then I realized I was terrible at math and terrible at science, and that kind of crossed that off for me.
At what point did you realize you were not good at math?
I think it was throughout 10th grade. Yeah, I think 9th grade was a little bit of hitting the wall, and then 10th grade was getting buried by the wall, and then that was it.
A lot of people I interview tend to be very driven and like involved in high school, and more like, what sort of drove you to get so involved in doing all these activities?
Yeah, I'd say, so I have an older brother, he's 4 years older than me. He's also went to Western as well. So I think having kind of a mentor and someone to look up to and see, how should I be, doing high school properly. A lot of his advice around getting involved and being extroverted and kind of being involved was really helpful to me to kind of shape my high school career and what I wanted to get out of it. So I think that was kind of the main reason that I got very involved early. And then after a while, your friend group is built up around these clubs, sports teams, etc. So you just keep going with it more for the social aspect more than anything.
It's interesting because I'm actually the oldest in my family. So I've always wondered, as a younger sibling, do you feel like some sort of pressure to live up to your brother's expectations or live up to the standard that he set?
Yeah, definitely. I think that he was pretty involved in high school as well. So there's a bar that's kind of set, and you want to being the competitive brother, top it and do more and be more engaged. So I think that was always an aspect to it, is to try to at least meet that and to do better. And I think even going a little bit further out, my parents have an expectation based on what he did in high school and what involvement his like and his grades were like, and etc. So that was kind of a bar for me to say I have to live up to this expectation or get above it.
So now let's go to grade 11, grade 12. You start thinking, okay, people start asking you, at that age, okay, what do you want to do with your life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
What were you sort of thinking? Where was your head at that point?
Yeah, so I think kind of through grade 11 specifically, became very overcommitted. So really just doing way too many things. Grades started to slip a little bit, and that's when I started to get a little concerned about maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I should just be very focused on certain areas. So I think towards grade 11 and 12, a big part of me was going towards the, business path of saying, I should be going to, Queen's Commerce, Ivey Business School, very set paths. And the other part of me was saying, I want to do something completely different than everyone else is doing. So I applied to McGill for their arts program, poli-sci. There was a dual degree between, I think, UBC and Sciences Po. It's 2 years in France, 2 years there, so I applied to that one, applied some schools in the States, so I just really wanted to keep my options open, but then ended up at the end of the day going for Western and kind of the path that I knew I was more familiar with. So that was kind of my grade 11 and 12 experience, was just being too committed and trying to scale it back, but then also realizing what I was more interested in, which was business, and trying to figure out what does that path look like.
And then so what were you thinking, so that's academic-wise, but career-wise, once you graduate, what sort of field did you want to go into? What did you want to do?
Yeah, so I distinctly remember being in the 12th grade, and my brother was a senior at Western. and a number of his friends were HBA too. So I was.
So your brother was an Ivy as well?
No, he was a political science major as well.
Okay.
And at MIT, I think, as well. But he had a number of friends through clubs and things. He's very involved in USC, and he knew them, and he introduced me to them and said, you should chat with these guys. If you want to go into business, talk to these guys. Almost exclusively, they were all investment bankers. Very A-type personalities, working in the States. So, I think in first and second year, when you hear names like Goldman Sachs and all that stuff, you get really excited. I had that exposure to 12th grade before becoming a Western. So I think coming into it, I knew I wanted to do business, but I was saying, finance is really cool. I think that's kind of what I want to get into. Full disclosure, had no idea what tech was. Didn't ever think I would ever get down that path. I didn't know how to code or any of that kind of stuff. So was very focused on a business path, and then finance was the most exposure. So felt like that would be a better fit.
Awesome. So then graduated high school, coming to university, think you're going to the Goldman Sachs, probably BCG kind of consulting banking route. When did you catch the tech bug?
So the tech bug specifically came a bit later. I think the first few months I tried doing breaking into Wall Street and all that kind of stuff. Realized that it wasn't maybe the best fit for me. So I think naturally, being these AEO, keener students, you either fall into banking or you want to do consulting. So I said, okay, I want to be a consultant. That's my game plan for the next 4 years. And chatting with people, I realized that your internships, first and second year, don't matter as much. It's more about your ability to do cases really well, have good grades. So I realized, okay, maybe I have a bit more free time to figure out what I really want to do, getting up to the HBA 1 year. And I remember kind of the tech bug that I initially got interested in it was I was at a career fair at Western. They have it in the rec center every year. And I remember chatting with someone, I think it was from Bell or one of those corporate companies that I wanted to work at as an intern. And I asked them, I said, okay, I'm in first year. I'm really excited with the company. Are there opportunities for me? And they were telling me, okay, we only hire HBA 1 students. That's it. I said, okay, that's fine. I'll get there eventually. It's cool. Then I went to this thing called London Tech Fest. So Tech Alliance is a local tech organization for London, the Greater London area. They organized this big festival at, I guess, London Music Hall must have been, where a bunch of tech companies from the area, everyone from Star Tech, Shopify showed up, and a couple other companies where they had, free food and all that jazz. So, being a first year student that loves free food, I just jumped on the bus and went by myself to see what this would be like. And met a recruiter there. His name was Jamie, and he was a very charismatic dude. And I asked him, I was kind of nervous, and I was like, oh, well, I think Shopify sounds cool. Let me give you a story. So I tried to give him a story to get him interested in me. So I told him my experience earlier that same day at the rec center, where I said, I think Shopify is really cool, but I'm only in first year, and I know you guys might only take third year students. I don't know if that's a good fit. And he said, no, definitely not. We don't care. Some of our people that work here haven't even graduated college before, so it doesn't really make a difference to us. So that's initially where I kind of caught the tech bug. I was like, oh, this is a different path, which I was kind of looking for through high school, is a different path, and also one that doesn't discriminate based on your education background or kind of more stereotypical metrics that a firm might look at. They're more interested, can you do the work, do you have hustle, etc. So that's kind of where I first got interested in tech and said, okay, this would be a really cool experience to get involved with.
And then, so you worked at Shopify. When did you work at Shopify?
So my first year summer is in the sales department, and then came back second year summer in the business operations and strategy team.
So you got an internship at Shopify after your first year of university?
Yeah, first
so
year.
It's really difficult. I know people who are in third year and can't even get an internship at Shopify.
Yeah.
How did you get that internship after your first year of university?
Yeah, so it was a lot of luck, a lot of very helpful and generous people that helped me along the way. I think skill played maybe a very small portion of it, but not much at all. So initially when I chatted with Jamie, I realized that Shopify would be a cool company to work at. And it's funny enough, the summer before, so this was about 2 months for the June, July, August period, I worked at this company called ExpoSoft. So it was my first internship ever, and it was only 2 months, and they were a very small business-oriented head company. They did Eventbrite, but very customized Eventbrite, and I was working on their sales team. So it was myself and one more person that was on the sales team basically, and I was the intern. So I kind of had a little bit of interest in sales. I like the idea that you are basically rewarded for how much effort you put in. There's no real cap, so it's a lot of jobs you have this expectation, you could hit it, you could overachieve. With sales, your quota is your expectation. If you overachieve, you have an accelerator, so you get paid more and more the more you can sell. So I thought that was insane. And I also just love the hustle about it, that I could just reach out to anyone I want, do whatever I wanted. So I tried to sell Shopify basically that I was committed to the sales path, and that's really all I wanted to do. which I realized, looking back on it, is really what a lot of companies look for in sales, interns and sales hires, is people that really want to do sales. So yeah, I chatted with Jamie, reached out to some friends. Actually, one of the guys I volunteered with in high school, his brother was a sales rep at Shopify. So I coffee chatted him and tried to see what it was like. Cold outreach on LinkedIn to other sales reps and just try to see how well can I know this organization? How could I try to game the system as best I could? And that was kind of the experience there, was people saying, this guy, he's in first year, probably has no clue what he's doing, but shows a lot of hustle, so maybe we should give him a chance.
So that's the part that gets to me, because I think I realized the value of networking in theory of university. Mm-hmm. So I kind of realized, the apple hit my head kind of late. I'm just trying to understand, how did you even know, for example, you mentioned reaching out to people cold on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. How did that idea even kind of come into your head in just first year?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely having good mentors. So I had some friends that were third and fourth year that were telling me, if you have an interview, you should do X, Y, Z to get a leg up. So a lot of the things that I think come naturally based on experience in third and fourth year, things like, do I send a follow-up email after I finish an interview, thanking them for the interview? Things like, do I prepare something outside of what they're expecting me to do when I'm applying for a job? So if they say, give me your cover letter and resume, am I going to go outside the box and make a slide deck that tells you why I think I'm a great fit, or a strategy for your company? Am I sending that just to the recruiter, or am I sending it to everyone on the team that I think would be interested in that? So those are the kind of advice that I had when I was in first year, of just trying to differentiate yourself as much as possible. And I think that I got really lucky in having that environment that kind of helped me to realize that early on, and being able to make that impact in the process. For sure.
Okay, so now I'm just trying to put the timeline together. So finish first year of university, go to Shopify, second year go to Shopify again.
Yes.
And then is this around the time the Clearbit thing came around?
Yes, yeah, so the Clearbit thing.
Before you get it, let me set the scene. So one of the things I find really cool about Trevor is the fact that me and him actually have a kind of similar path, in the sense that we're both in university, we're both on sort of a path we had in mind. And I think we're both a bit frustrated with the education system, it's fair to say. And we both decided to take a year off school and work for startups. I work for a startup in Toronto, and you work for a startup in San Francisco, as his Patagonia jacket might give away.
Give it away.
But I don't want to give away the story too much. So sort of tell us through where your head was at during that point, Silicon Valley, talking to your parents, that whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. So to backtrack a little bit, throughout second year, I realized marketing was really interesting to me on top of sales. So I started, reaching out to Toronto-based companies to see, could I intern on your team as a marketer, but do it remotely. So could I help you with email campaigns or anything that would be helpful to your company? So I did a few of those during the year. One was at Turnstyle, later got acquired by Yelp, and another one was #Paid, which is a company in Toronto that does influencer marketing software. So I had a bit of experience. Came into the summer, which was a business operations role, that was actually heavily analytical, that I was not expecting, because I thought it would be more analyze cases, understand here's what I get. I was still on the idea that it might give me a huge leg up in consulting. So I thought, okay, this is a great idea.
So you still wouldn't go to consulting?
I still had an idea that I was that might be a path that I'm interested in doing now. I caught the tech bug in saying that I want to be involved in tech and committed to it. But you still see, I was in second year, I had friends that were HBA1 getting jobs at McKinsey and all those crazy companies, and I thought that would be really cool. So I still had that in mind. The issue was the BizOps team was more analytical, so I had to pick up skills like SQL.
And you said you're not good at math.
And I wasn't good at math, so it was just, I came on the first day. Full disclosure here, my boss was a Queens grad in math and had a master's of math from Queens. So he was a heavily analytical guy taking on an intern that had, an arts background and no real math background. So it was a tough summer, and towards the end, totally by coincidence, a friend of my team, Steve, who actually went to Queen's Commerce, and he was working full-time with the BizOps team. He saw a tweet from Alex McCall, who's the CEO of Clearbit, that said, looking for someone that has a sales background and has a SQL background. And there's a little Venn diagram at the intersection. I want someone there. So he showed it to me. He said, dude, you have a sales background. You learned SQL this summer, and I was using it every day. Why don't you shoot this guy a DM and say, can I
slide into the DMs?
Literally slide into the DMs and see if you can get a job.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what the heck? Worst case scenario, I mean, good connection in the Valley. He'll think that I have a lot of heart and hustle, and that maybe we can stay connected. So I literally DM'd him and said, hey, this is my background. I'd love to chat. Responded within a couple hours. Said, yeah, let's jump on a call in a day or two. So when I first started chatting with him, told him what I was interested in, kind of my background within sales and tech and what I wanted to do. That was actually for a full-time sales role. So that wasn't really a marketing or any of that kind of stuff. It was a salesperson that understood the data side. So I chatted with like their sales managers. I had kind of sequences of interviews. And throughout this whole period, I'm kind of telling my parents what's happening, but not really. So I'm letting them know, I was like, yeah, this cool opportunity came up in San Francisco. And they said, oh, cool. You select your courses for the fall? Yeah. I said, yeah, I did.
So speaking of courses for the fall, did you have AO when you came into?
Yes, yeah.
And then, so you're going to get to that part of the story as well?
Yeah. So the gist of that was kind of after first year, decided that Ivey wasn't a good fit because of the interest in tech. And then also I met, it's very anecdotal, but I met a few friends that had gone into those paths from arts backgrounds. So people that, still go into consulting in those routes, but didn't do a business program. They might have gone to, U of T, international relations or something like that. So I thought, okay, it's still an option. I want to do tech, but I did take 257 in second year. Didn't renew my application for any of that kind of stuff. So I knew I was probably committing to the Huron route.
It's really interesting too, because you know that I interviewed Annie's the last guest, and she also had the exact same thing.
Exactly.
She wanted to go to Ivey. So then you thought that you didn't want to go to Ivey because you thought you knew you wanted to go into tech. But didn't you think as well that maybe Ivey might actually help you get into tech?
That was another piece there about the whole mentor stuff that was really helpful. One of my fellow interns in my first year summer was Stephen Song. So he was a guy that was doing the product internship there, and then went on. Now he's a PM at Facebook in the Valley. So he was in HBA2, a dual degree with computer science, software engineering, something in that practice. And I was chatting with him about it to figure out, is Ivey a good fit? I was chatting with the HBA graduates that worked there, because there are a number of Ivey students that work at Shopify Plus, and asked them what their experience was. And Steven introduced me to Annie, who I chatted with my first year summer to figure out, what's your path? She was working at Pivotal at the time. Was in a BMOS kind of degree, so I was curious about what her path was like. So I think the feedback that I got was, at that time, Ivey was not great for tech. They didn't have, now it's improved significantly, leaps and bounds in terms of companies like Drop, Well Simple, Google, APMM coming recruiting on campus. But back then it wasn't as well known. And their advice was, you can really focus your path in Huron, for example, and have a lot more free time to really craft your narrative about how you want to go into tech. So that's kind of when I decided what I probably wasn't going to be doing the HBA program.
Interesting. So now let's jump forward to the Clearbit decision. You're talking to your parents, you're telling the situation, and then so how's that going? Yeah, so the caveat of all that, when I wrapped up my last interview, basically I was finishing second year. I just finished second year at the point. And the sales managers, these guys, basically told me at the end of the interview, that was my last interview with them, the third round, they told me, if I was you, I would not drop out of school to take this job. If there's opportunities here now, it's going to be here later. Don't do this. We don't think you're a good fit, basically. So I was kind of shocked. I was like, all right, you know what? That's fine. I put a lot of effort into this. I was making landing pages for them, recording voicemails for sales. I really wanted this job. But I guess it ended up not working out from that conversation. And then I got an email from Alex, which is CEO. Later on, probably a couple days later, saying, hey, want to schedule you a call with our COO to discuss the offer. I was like, oh, offer for what? Because I didn't think I got the job. So funny enough, and I love my boss when I had there, Matt, he's the head of growth. Basically, the sales team didn't want to take me on full time, but Alex thought, it'd be cool to have you on the team. We don't really have a role for you. So their head of growth, Matt, said, hey, I'll take him on as an intern. That'd be a fun experience. So he gave me an offer to be an intern on their growth team, which was marketing focused for a year. And the contingency specifically was that over a 2-month period, you can't ramp up fast enough. And we don't know where the company's going to be next summer. Keep in mind, this was August. Yeah. So they said it has to be for a year starting 2 weeks from now. And that's when I kind of had to go back to my parents and tell them I'm taking a year off, I'll come back to school. I was frantically calling Huron. They were very supportive of this, of saying, we'll defer your kind of program for the next year. We'll give you a lot of flexibility with there. Just take this opportunity, and then finish the software internship, and then shipped out a week into September to San Francisco to start the job. Oh wow! So many parallels between my story as well. So I'm trying to imagine. So first question is, when you said you were taking a year off, because to be honest with you guys, I said I was taking a year off, but I did not want to go back to school. When you said you were taking a year off, were you actually planning on taking a year off and coming back to school?
So initially, I said, yeah, I'm taking a year off to come back to school. By the time January and February hit, which I was 6 months in, the team was telling me, they're like, well, full disclosure, Alex, our CEO, never went to college. My boss, Matt, dropped out of college. So there was almost an anti-college opinion. And some people obviously went to college and did great, but at least from that influence, they were telling me, you know what, like if you want to stay on, if you want to stay in the valley and work and growth and et cetera, just, we can make that happen. Just, commit to it. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I had to call my parents and my mom know, like, hey, so I'm thinking of dropping out and just going full time and staying here. Not sure how you feel about that. My parents are both immigrants, so they were pretty like, you should finish school. So yeah, that was definitely a conversation that came up like midway through the year where I was really enjoying it. At that point, like, comfortable with the role, was loving like the friend group that I developed there at that point. Mm-hmm. I was pretty committed to that route, so that was kind of the conversation that came up. But initially, no, you're right. Initially, I was like, I'll come back to school after.
Yeah, and that's just like my parents do. Same thing. Immigrant parents, very much focused on education.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Okay, so a couple things that stuck out to me was that so you mentioned that when you were applying for Clearbit, you mentioned something about you made a landing page, you made voicemails, and then Shopify too. You really went above and beyond. So like walk us through like what did you have to do? Like be like this tactical, like because I'm trying to think from the perspective of people watching this right now. Right. Advice for them. What are some things you did that helped you get a Shopify interview and a Clearbit job? And like advice for other people who want to work for tech industry.
Right. So the caveat that I'll give with a lot of tech companies, not all of them, I'm sure some of the corporate ones or very structured ones don't have this process, but a lot of tech companies have a lot of flexibility on who they're taking and what they're looking for, and also have very little precedence. So if you're looking at a lot of big firms that come recruit on campus, they've taken interns from this school for the last 20 years. So they know exactly what to expect. They know the grade range, they know the personality, etc. Very full put. Interning at Clearbit, they had started 2 years ago. Even Shopify Plus, when I first went there, they were a 60-person org that started in 2014. So the recruiters didn't really know what to look for in sales hires. Actually, the Shopify Plus was the first sales team that Shopify as a whole had. It was a public company. Wow. They really had no precedence to go off. So I think, with tech, in a lot of cases, there's very little precedence, so there's a lot of opportunity for you to go above and beyond. So when I knew this was a sales role, they said, can you put together, an email campaign targeting one of our clients? I was able to go pretty in depth in terms of here is not only the emails that I would write, here's like the data that I'd use from Clearbit to do it. That's a huge tip for anyone that's applying for a tech company is use their software if you can. If it's a consumer software, much easier. If it's an enterprise software, sign up for a free trial. Just so you understand what you're actually talking about when you go to these companies. So I use Clearbit data in my emails. It's a huge thing they do there. And then, took another step. They didn't ask for it, but I said, what if I just figure out these buyer personas and then record voicemails that I would leave them based on the stage of the funnel they're in. So I just got very granular. I put together a deck that kind of overviewed the SQL query that I did over the summer. I was taking out some information that was too specific. Showed them, I had a blog running at the time. Was one of the advice that I got.
Which we'll definitely get to.
Yeah, we'll jump into it. But that was an advice that I got my first trip to San Francisco in early 2017, so before the second summer there. So a marketer I talked with, and I'm still very good friends with, told me, start a blog, start putting your thoughts out there, what you're learning, even if it is terrible, and a lot of the stuff I wrote there was not great, but it showed that I had some competency, way more than a black and white resume ever will. And I think that was the other big benefit is I remember Alex responding to one of my first round emails saying, team read your blog, I loved it. And that was just the biggest, I was over the moon. It was like, oh, this guy, I don't get much traffic, my mom reads it, it's great, but, no one seriously follows it at that point. And here they were reading it and saying, here's how he thinks about email marketing, SEO, et cetera, because I had blogged about that at the time. And that's a huge W. So I think TLDR there is just, find ways with tech companies to really love their software, show a lot of potential, and just go above and beyond whatever they tell you to do. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these companies are just looking for hustlers that will go in there and just demolish the role, because that company's going to look so different in the next 3 months than it will be when you first join.
By the way, the name of the blog, trevorsookraj.com, you need to check it out. It's very, very good.
Appreciate that.
So another thing too I've picked up from you that you're very good at networking. Networking is something that kind of scares a lot of people. Sort of how did you develop your networking skills, and what's the keys to good networking?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that I internalize to this day when it comes to networking and recruiting is put yourself in the shoes of whoever you're talking to and try to figure out what do you think they would be interested in talking about. So I've seen it, I have friends that are in Ivey now where they have a networking session, right, an info session, and everyone just swarms the presenter right after they go. They have these circles of 10 people, spitting questions back and forth, trying to stand out. Imagine if you're a first-year analyst at a bank, or you're a first-year consultant, or you're someone who's working at these tech companies, and you're coming to London, Ontario for an info session, to talk to prospective students. Are you there to tell them about your career? You have to sell them on the program, obviously. But what do you really want to hear that will get you excited and make you have a good time with that? So that was some of the questions that I asked, even with recruiters, was things about like, oh yeah, like I'm a huge soccer fan. Am I gonna have time to watch like FIFA? It's on this summer. Something as casual as that. They'll joke about how the office loves soccer, and then you can kind of carry that forward and like create like a more personal relationship with these guys. I think one of the questions that I still stick to this day that I hear asked a lot is, are you happy right now? Like in general, like outside.
I ask that question a lot too.
You got it. It's so simple. But if you ask someone, even if this conversation is going so smoothly in terms of like, oh, I was in sales, this is my background, here's what I do on a day-to-day, they're talking about all this role, and then you ask them this question, like, are you happy? They might be like, crap, like it's been a week since anyone ever asked me that. Here's everything I'm thinking. And you might have just met this guy or girl, and they might say, yeah, here's why I'm not happy right now. I'm in New York, I'm doing sales, my girlfriend's in California, I need to figure that out. Or they might say like, yeah, like I play a lot of, I'm a very like a CrossFit or like, ultra marathon guy. Work hours are really brutal right now, so I don't know if I can like make time to train for that. It's these small things that people opening up about will just be so much more interested in you as a person if you take that layer away to their like X role at what company and just start digging into like, what do they want out of life and like what is their approach in this role? And I think that a lot of people surprisingly open up to you and say, yeah, this is what I'm kind of thinking, like here's what I'm at. And that just changes the entire trajectory of the conversation. Because now it's no longer like, what do you want to do with this company? It's now like, who are you as a person? And that's 100 times better.
So another thing I'm thinking about too is in terms of networking and stuff. So right now it's February on campus, pretty much like the heat of recruiting season. What are your plans for this summer?
Yes, my plans for the summer are kind of all over the map. I always figure things out last minute, or I stumble into them, whatever happens. My plans for the summer right now, I realized after my year at Clearbit that execution is great. So being the growth guy at Uber or like at a cool company is amazing. I like building things. So execution, if my boss tells me we're launching this new product, which we were at the time, it's called Clearbit Forms. We want you to take like a marketing lead on it and be able to kind of help us launch it. That was super interesting. Every day I came to work and I was motivated to like talk to customers, get feedback, send it to the Eng team. A week later, a new feature's launched. That was so exciting. Pricing models. If my boss comes and tells me, hey, can you increase conversion by 2%? I can do it and I'm interested in it, but I'm not nearly as passionate about it. And I realized, early on in your career, you want to do things you're passionate about and learn as much as you can. And I've also, when I was in the Valley, I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of young founders. And even founders that are on their second or third company, and their advice was, there's no better time than when you're a new grad to start a company, because if you're a new grad and you fail, 6 months in, a year in, just go and do another new grad role. If you're 10 years into your career and you quit your job to do a startup and it fails, you probably might not be able to go right back into that job. You might have to find like a new job to change your life. You probably have like a family or something at that point. It's a lot more turbulence at that point of your life. So I realized I wanted to build, so I started a boot camp to get more kids into tech sales. Because I think sales is the best career path you can get into in tech. I think there's super high potential. Our
first disagreement. Because I'm team coding, engineering, blah, 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 all that stuff. This guy's telling me sales. I actually think that sales might be the worst job low-key. But, I literally think that's the worst job you can get in tech. But, anyway, why? I'm curious to hear, why do you think that?
So, I think definitely technical competencies are very highly valued. Being able to code, being able to build your product, etc. When I think of an entrepreneur, and I think of like a business person, for example, if you are not the engineer on the team, you're a co-founder, you're the first two people, you need to be the sales guy.
That is true.
So the minute your buddy pumps out a product, an MVP or something, you need to have a client ready to buy that product. And that is true, I think, of startups that are 0, like 2 employees, all the way until a startup that's like Series A when they can start delegating some of those roles out. I've seen founders that are past their seed and are still selling personally to larger clients, or like trying to figure out partnerships and et cetera. It's a skill set that I think, even if you don't stay in sales, you don't stay as a founder, is transferable across the board. But yeah, I definitely agree that technical competency is a huge part of that. I think it's naive to say that that's not an important part of building a company and being in tech. I just kind of looked at it as you can either be a technical person that understands how to build product, how to design it, how to work that, or you can be someone that's the everything else guy, so the marketing, the sales, all that jazz, and that's the one that I would suggest for people that are more business oriented than not.
You're right. Actually, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm saying this a bit in jest that, like, sales is right. I actually think that, like, it's probably the most useful skill you can get, being able to sell something. So sales is actually very important. But back to the original question.
Yeah. For the boot camp, so I decided, kind of from different companies, realizing that sales is really hard to hire for, and chatting with friends in school, it wasn't even a career they knew about. So what I did around October was chat with 10 or 15 HBA2 students and BMOS students and figure out what is tech, what do you think about tech? And surprisingly, like 80% of them would say, I don't know how to code, so I can't work in tech. I mean, Google, a company that has tens of thousands of employees, not every single one of them knows how to code.
Yeah.
There's so many different roles in tech that you can get into, and they just didn't know that because of how new, I guess, the industry was or their exposure to it. So realized that was a gap and decided to put together like a boot camp, 4-week boot camp with some friends who worked in sales at Shopify and a few other companies, and took on a cohort of 11 students that are in their last year at Western and taught them, once a week we met up and did a sales boot camp. So on to the actual question, in terms of summer, applied for the next 36.
Nice.
And got into that.
Congrats.
So yeah, super excited for it. I think they're a great organization. A lot of really cool potential people that are in there. So yeah, I got involved with that, and plans right now is to do that for the summer and work on this boot camp, kind of build it out.
That's really interesting. By the way, what is the name of the boot camp?
It's called The Path.
The Path, is there a website for it?
There isn't right now.
There's no website.
There's jointhepath.com that redirects to my personal blog. So if you guys want to check that one out,
Typical
I got an
sales
extra.
Typical sales move. You never think you start up to his own personal website.
Some of the brand. That's it.
Wow, that's really cool. So then, I'm trying to think of how to do a good segue on this. So I guess probably the first question I would ask now is, because you mentioned, you mentioned sales, and I know you definitely still have the startup bug in you. So now I'm going to ask you the question I like to call the 1, the 5, and the 25.
Okay.
So essentially, where do you like to be doing? Where do you see yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, and 25 years from now?
Okay, gotcha. So I'd say 1 year from now, building is definitely what I want to be doing. I think I'm not exclusively committed to saying I have to be starting my own venture. It doesn't have to be a product. I've also realized agency life is very interesting. So being a marketing agency that does contract work for other companies, I think building out services is a blanket statement. I think is very underrated. Everyone is focused on building a product, an app.
I agree with you, but the thing is, services don't scale.
That's it.
That's the only problem.
That's the challenge. I think that's why apps are a lot sexier in terms of like I want to start a business. But I think services are a really cool opportunity where I can be the builder, be the person behind it, own a team. Have clients that I have to retain. A lot of the skill sets that I've kind of learning through internships that I'll be able to do full time. And I think the last one that is also underrated is kind of the entrepreneur idea. So I think there are certain companies that are, fairly, they're not large, but maybe they're trying to launch in a new city or they're trying to launch in a new market.
Yeah.
Could you be the person that pretty much goes into that and owns that launch? It's not as much building from scratch as I would prefer, but I think that's also a very cool opportunity. I remember meeting someone in high school for a company called EverFi. So there's a huge edtech company in the States, and they're Series D or E at this point. But their head of Canadian expansion was a McGill grad, and she was the first one to hire the first 4 employees in Canada out of the small office space in Toronto. And the company at the time was 200 people. So I think that is really cool. She scaled that to 25 or 30 in Canada, is now overseeing the northeastern US. So I think that's a really cool opportunity too to build, but maybe not jump right into the deep end or trial by fire right away.
And then so let's go 25 years from now.
Right.
Or do you want to do 5? Do you want to do 5 years from now?
No, I think 5 are pretty similar. Maybe just jump to 25.
Let's jump to 25.
I think everyone kind of has these ideas of these are the goals in life that I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So for me, that's been starting a business that gets traction, that has employees, that I'm able to make a lot of money off. I'm not gonna be naive and say that's not a goal. Definitely want to make bank. So I think that's definitely an aspiration of mine. But I think once you get past that stage in your life, so ideally 25 years from now, if I have a family and have a good amount of financial stability, being able to pursue whatever it is that interests me at that point in my life, I think is something that I aspire to do. Getting into politics might be down the road.
Interesting.
I've always been very extroverted. I love student politics when I was in it. I think having a successful career and being able to do that would be really cool. I also think if you have influence and
Are you bilingual?
I am. Yeah, I did first version for the first couple of years.
Cool.
Yeah. don't quote this video. But,
who knows? 25 years from now, who knows?
It's yeah. Keep your voting open. But yeah, I think that's another one. I think being able to impact areas of society that you're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're 25 years from now, I'll be this like my late 40s, and be able to impact like something I'm really passionate about. I know there are some people that really are interested in the healthcare space. So they might, after they've kind of finished their career, they might get very deep into like, I want to be board trustee on a hospital.
So like 25 years from now, that's a long time horizon. Like what's that Bill Gates quote that people underestimate what the change that they can make? So people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So
yes, I agree with that.
So 25 years from now, like what are some like big problems you see in society that you would love to like tackle?
I think there's a couple of different things. So one, I'm a political science major, so I have a very deep interest in society and how we function, intersection of economics, philosophy, all that stuff. So I think that, as we're seeing with Trump and a lot of these things, it's becoming more and more of a polarized society. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a consequence of increased amount of choice, but not an ability to understand that choice.
Oh my goodness, that's so true.
So my buddy Philip, I work with on Government Fund, he actually came up with this idea and framed it really well, so I have to give credits to him. But he basically, put that together where he was saying, in the 50s or 60s, religion was very dominant. People had a very, conservative idea, mm-hmm. and you were just streamlined. There was no real challenging it. With this new age, there's so much more information out there. Secularism is rising in exponential growth. People are forced to make decisions and choices a lot faster than they were before. But the education system hasn't changed, right? Colleges are still teaching the same thing in a lot of cases. The system of like high school, college, grad programs are still very structured. We're only recently seeing the Lambda schools and those kind of pop up, last mile education programs come into place. So I think, that's going to be a huge problem to tackle is like retraining when, where's AI going to be in 25 years? Mm-hmm. How much of Canada and America will be employed in the same jobs now as then? How do we tackle that? I think that is a huge problem that I want to be involved with at some point 25 years down the line.
Very interesting. So again, like I said, TrevorSookraj.com, check it out. And so I was looking at your blog preparing for this interview, and then one of the things that's jumped out to me is that you read a lot. And not just read, you also consume a lot of content. So like articles, podcasts, books, all that kind of stuff. So like, what are some like really interesting books, articles, podcasts, content that you've consumed recently that you like? What I'm going to tell people about?
Yeah, so one of the podcasts that I've been very engaged with recently is Sam Harris. So I think
Waking Up.
Used to be Waking Up with Sam Harris. I think is what it's called. I think it's like Making Sense now. He changed it up. It's on Spotify and other mediums if you guys want to look at it. But he essentially interviews different kind of leaders in different spaces. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll interview people that are business magnates that have had really good backgrounds. I think Tim Ferriss does a really good job with this as well. Mm-hmm. So I think following those podcasts and just really, on my way to class in the morning, or if I'm, trying to go to sleep or something, listen to a podcast that I can figure out like what are the conversations, what are the big questions you guys are tackling. That's been really helpful. In terms of books, I'm really interested in kind of like philosophy, political science, economics, that route. So I've been reading books that kind of go down that pathway. So I think, Principles is a really good one by Ray Dalio. That was good for like kind of setting up a base of your life and where you want to go for that. Mm-hmm. There's another one, I think it's called Reasons and Persons by Derek Parfit. So that's one that's kind of dives into like, what does it mean to be a person? What are your responsibilities? How do we like envision the world and react to it? And just diving into those kind of books. So I think, I would say reading is a huge part of my life. In terms of like content and like blogs and newsletters, if you're interested in tech, there's an accelerated newsletter. It's run by two twins at CRV Ventures that essentially put it out once a week that recaps like tech news, all that jazz. There's a couple other ones like Startup Watching's another one that I'm a fan of.
Another one I would recommend for the audience is paulgraham.com.
Yes, sorry, totally, you nailed it. That was huge.
And then I was thinking too, in terms of books, you mentioned something too about how like we have a lot of options nowadays, but we're not able to process it. There's this really good book by Alvin Toffler called Future Shock.
Future Shock, okay, interesting.
If you want to check it out later, if you want to check it out as well, Alvin Toffler, Future Shock. The basic idea is that technology is advancing at a rapid rate, but humans were not able, so like basically people are getting cognitive dissonance, right? Where you're getting all these different options, but your brain's not able to process it all. Mm-hmm. So you sort of get like shocked by all the changes happening.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting book related to what you're talking about. So I guess third last question I would ask you is, do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes, yeah.
So I stole this question from Gary Vaynerchuk podcast, and that question is basically, what are you currently obsessed with? So this can be anything. It can be a workout at the gym, Instagram account, YouTube channel, book, anything. A device on Amazon. What are you currently obsessed with?
Yeah, I would say, so I'm a meticulous planner. I love to plan. I have Google Calendar that I use religiously. I use Notion for like note taking and organizing my thoughts. I've been roasted in the past for like scheduling friend meetups in Google Calendar and sending an email.
Which is what he did with me. He sent me a Calendar link. He sent me a Calendar link. Okay, go ahead.
I'm guilty of it. So I think just looking at the day, I use apps like.
Who does this guy think he is? Have a coffee jacket, sends me a Calendar link. Okay.
I'm guilty of it. I'm totally guilty of it. And I think just like that productivity piece of seeing I use Moment, so I realize how many hours on my phone I spend a day. On my phone, I switch it to grayscale every couple of months to figure out to reduce the amount of attachment you have to your phone, attraction to your phone. I delete apps like Instagram and Snapchat fairly frequently, just for a couple of weeks to see if I can detox from that. So I think I'm always looking for ways that I can become more productive and make more of my day. The biggest thing I've been obsessed with is understanding how my body works and how to reset. So I think from a physical perspective, that is what diets are most productive for me, what does my sleep cycle should look like, exercising, all that jazz. From a mental perspective, that's things like, if I meditate before bed, I try to do it every day for 10 minutes. What during the day can I do to get myself kind of reset? What triggers me when it comes to a conversation or something someone says? How do I react to that? How do I distill those information and emotions and be more presentable in that moment? Be more present in that moment, really. So I think that's something that I've been continuously just more and more curious about, is seeing how deep can you get? And obviously not too deep, because that gets pretty weird after a while, but I'd say, just being more productive and getting more out of your day, basically.
Yeah, and the topic of physical, because that's very interesting, because I'm kind of in that point too right now. Different physical diets. What are some diets you're experimenting with right now?
So I've been trying, with a lot of pain, intermittent fasting.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that. Because I'm doing that as well.
I've had some friends that have told me about it, and I tried it when I was at Clearbit for a couple months and it worked really well. Being in school and having a morning class at 8:30 and not being able to eat until 1 has been pretty tough. But I'm enjoying it overall. I think I'm eating smaller meals. There's always that issue if you eat a big meal, you're kind of gassed after and you can't do anything. So eating smaller meals, drinking a lot more water. So that's one physical thing I've been playing around with. I'd say outside of that, just different workout tactics when it comes to going to the gym and stuff. Picked up a lot more cardio activities, so I played futsal with you. Picked up squash in October. I know it's a big trend now with sweeping Western. So I've been involved in that. So I think intermittent fast is probably the biggest one over the last 2 weeks that I've been trying to commit to. But it's definitely quite a challenge.
That's awesome. Second last question is, so if someone found some of the stuff you're saying really interesting and they wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, you can have me on Facebook, Trevor Sookraj, trevor.sookraj@gmail.com if you want to send me an email. Any of those mediums, Twitter. should be slide into my DMs.
That's awesome. Man.
I can't give you a job, but
you never know, man. What's the company, Lead Path?
The Path, yeah.
You never know. They might be hiring soon.
Could be hiring soon. That's true.
So now, final question is, okay. To be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure out how to word this question. But the general idea now is, you can either take the route of advice you would give to your younger self, or you give me some general advice you can give to the audience how you're watching, something finally I'm going to think about or a piece of advice.
Yeah, I would say the advice or the thing that I would implore myself at a younger age, and also a lot of other people to think about, is constantly be reevaluating your decisions in your life, and don't be afraid to deviate from the norm. So I think some of the most successful people that I've met have stuck by that philosophy of saying, just because there's precedent in this path, that doesn't mean that's the only way to that path. That doesn't mean that path's for me. Just because I'm doing an internship here does not mean that has to be my next career path. I think it's very easy, especially in business paths, to be caught up in this rat race of how do I get my first internship? Okay, I got this. How do I get this internship? How do I get a return offer? How do I exit to this job? How do I get into an MBA program? You're always thinking of these sprints. Basically that's the way I think it's a sprint mentality. What you got to be thinking about is longer term.
Marathon.
What goals do I want to get accomplished in the next 5 to 10 years? And then what are all the different ways I can get there? Whether that is traditional paths or non-traditional paths. And then what skills do I need to learn to accomplish those goals? And then how do I gain those skills? So for me, that has been working for incredibly smart people. So over anything else, just like if you have an incredibly smart manager that inspires you, that has a really good grasp of what you want to learn, that's incredibly valuable. I would say like skill set wise and understanding the skill sets you need to succeed. So for me, that was like marketing and sales, everything involved in marketing, like SEO, paid ads, that stuff. Sales in terms of like how do I manage a pipeline, outbound sales, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the approach that I would take that I think is universal for anyone. Just because you're in, medical sciences does not mean you want to be a doctor, does not mean you have to be a doctor. You don't have to commit to that path. You can do your MCATs and decide, I don't want to be a doctor. You can get into med school and say you don't want to be a doctor. But just constantly reevaluating your life, I think, will get so many people more happier with where they're currently at, and also think moving forward, here's where I should be, how do I get there? So I think that's the biggest thing I would say to my younger self, because I didn't do it nearly enough, and I still don't do it that often. But for everyone else as well, it can be a huge piece.
That's awesome. Beautiful note to end with. Trevor.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.